Hello, this is the Panic Consulting ArcGIS Parcel Fabric Workshop. And today what we're going to do is we're going to look at a continuation of our previous Parcel Fabric lessons. This is lesson number 3. The first one was fundamentals. The second one was records and introducing the concept of records. Today, we're going to talk about record-driven workflows, what they are, when to use them, when not to use them, those sorts of things. Just a quick reminder, again, Panic Consulting is a professional services firm. We're in our 23rd year, almost 24th anniversary. If you want to find out more about us, go ahead to panicconsulting.com and you can look at us here and look it up and see what we're doing. We also have an events page in which we list on the calendar things that are coming up, things that we're going to be at, because we're now starting to go back to some in-person conferences. We also have a list of the workshops back on our workshops section under the events, and it will list all upcoming workshops in a linear form. You actually on this page, you also have a link to the recordings and you can get more information about them. Finally, in addition, we have a YouTube page that you can look at. And if you go to the YouTube page, you can go ahead and download and view all of the previous recordings. And I think we're 65 or so right now. So we have quite a few of them up there. And every single workshop that we do and have been doing in the last year and a half, 2.5 years is up there. Please subscribe if you want to get notified of when these occur. Also, any comments from that, starting to answer more and more comments on there. So go ahead and do that and look at that. So, by the way, thank you all for attending, those of us that are here. Also, one more thing. If you have comments, if you have questions, if you're here live, go ahead and put them in the chat window. Chris is actually going and moderating that, and he will be able to go and give you either the answer, or he'll make sure that I go and provide an answer for you. That's the reason why you're here live, right? Is to go and have interaction with this. All right, so let's start. Remember, we during the last 2 lessons, we went over what the parcel fabric object is. And here, I'll go here and show you this is the parcel fabric object. And it's actually a controlling data set, which goes and listens and identifies when certain things happen. And when certain things happen, it goes and runs some processes. Things such as make sure that you comply with the topology rules that are established, that all polygons have to have lines on them. All lines can't self-intersect, self-overlap, can't have dangles, and the lines have to have ends or points on the ends of them. The parcel fabric also will go and validate if we have any validation attribute rules inside of here. You're actually going to see, this is the second time I'm actually using ArcGIS Pro 3 in the workshops, and I just wanted to go and make sure that we start getting used to this interface on here. One thing I do want to go and update on, I was recently out at the user conference in San Diego, the 2022 user conference in San Diego, and I talked to some of the developers because I had seen some blog posts that said that if you create an attribute rule with release 3, it often will cause problems with release 2. They have told me that that's not the case, and somebody had misspoken. I'm still going to go and test it, and I'll give you the results of that in some future workshop. But it may be that you don't have to be as concerned about that, but just be concerned that if you open up and save a project in ArcGIS Pro 3, you cannot open that in 2. You have to go back to previous one or recreate it for that, or you have to go and create a project package on there. All right, so again, this is ArcGIS Pro 3.0, and this is a parcel fabric. This is a, just to make sure that we're all aware of this, if we go to the properties of this and look at the parcel fabric, this is a version 5 parcel fabric, which has specific elements in there that are used for to enable some of the functionality inside of version ArcGIS Pro 3. All right, so we talked about the parcel fabric going and making sure that certain things happen. And then at our last workshop, we talked about the records and what the records actually are. Remember, the records are in fact a polygon feature class. If I go and open this, we will see that this is a polygon feature class that has name fields on it, has create deal fields on it. It actually has a unique global ID, and that global ID is used for everything that you create while you have a record active. And the active records are located here at the heads up display. So if I want to go and invoke and have the parcel fabric begin to start tracking me, begin to start organizing the features that I create, the features that I delete in here, I first need to create a record. And a record is, again, intending to go and organize both the lines and the polygons around a specific type of transaction. That transaction can be organized many different ways. It can be organized by the person who did it, the document that created it, or some sort of other workflow procedure that's going through. The record has to have a name on here. The record, it is this record name is not necessarily unique. And you can have multiple parcels all organized under a single record name. And then we have a record type, and this is a coded value domain that each organization can set up and make it customized for themselves. In this case, with this parcel fabric, we have it organized around what type of a document it might be, whether it's a combined or a meets and bounds split or aliquot split, subdivision, condo, minor subdivision, replat, or other. Let's just go and say that this is a combination. And then the date at which this occurred, it could be the date at which it was edited, or it could be what was previously called the legal date. This is the date on which the document's recorded. Again, there's a lot of flexibility in the new parcel fabric. You will note that they also are highlighting the created parcel count, which shows you how many new parcels are resulting from this record. And with this latest release, they've also added the retired parcel count, which shows you how many parcels may have been retired or deleted as a result of this. In this case, these are both, they get filled in after the record gets created. Let's go ahead and create a record. And we'll note that it's up here in my heads up display, allows me to go and track what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is the most simplest of data-driven workflows. All right, excuse me, not data-driven, record-driven workflows, which are going to take two parcels. I'm going to take this parcel and I'm going to take this parcel and I'm going to merge them, or I'm going to combine them. There's different terminology for the same thing. So I'm going to go and merge them together. And because I have an active record, my parcel fabric object is actually listening. And there are certain tools inside the parcel fabric that are parcel fabric aware. So for example, the merge tool, which is the tool I'm going to use now, it's aware that I have an active record. And when I have an active record, it will go and say, okay, I'm going to do other things beyond just the standard ArcGIS Pro merge. I'm going to do other things beyond that. And one of them is it's going to allow me and say, well, what do you want to do with this? Let's go ahead and merge this into this 006, this lot number 6 in here. And, it's interesting to me that the merge tool, while it seems simplistic on its surface, it's one of the more complex tools that we use because we can merge them into an existing feature, which means that you're not necessarily going to go and track the history on here. We can do it into a new feature, and we can tell it to keep the original features, which means that it's going to create a new polygon in here, a new tax parcel in this case, and it's going to keep whatever lines that we have. It's going to keep them, but it's also going to go and create the historic parcels and mark as historic any lines that it no longer uses. We also have this option to go and use a template or not use a template. This template option is usually when you're going and you want to merge things into a separate parcel type, not the same parcel type, but a separate parcel type. So usually if I'm just doing a merge, in which case I have a document that says owner A bought owner B's property and they want to merge it into one single parcel, I will uncheck the template and just tell it to use the attribution of owner A's property. And I will click merge on here. Because this is Parcel Fabric aware, what it will do is it will automatically go and merge those two polygons, create a new polygon, identify what lines are available, keep the lines, or if they in fact are somehow impacted by this, it will go and mark them historic. So I will have, in this case here, let's go and uncheck this because this was an earlier component on here. Let's look at the attributes. I have one line that's no longer needed that has been marked as retired. And then I also have these two on here. And I have an overall historic tax parcel, which was the original subdivision. I've used this for a couple different demos. I really don't want that on here. But here is my new tax parcel. Here is my one historic line that's no longer active. And here are my two previously active tax parcels that have now been marked historic. And what you'll find is in here, for the current tax parcel, it has been marked with the created by record that contains the global ID of our current record. Our current active record has actually global ID, which is this unique number right here. In addition, everything that it impacted will have, for example, this is the historic tax lines. And if you look, this actually has exactly the same retired by global ID. So it says that that record actually, when it created in one new parcel, it retired one line and it retired two tax polygons here. There's the global ID for the record here and the global ID for the record here. All right, so the way the data-driven workflows work is that if you have an active record and an active record is required for a data-driven workflow, it invokes the Parcel Fabric object. And that Parcel Fabric object listens and sees when you use any tool that is Parcel Fabric enabled, and it goes and modifies things for it. For example, in addition to creating these new polygons, it also, when I go here, it actually went and did things like it calculated the area of my parcel. It went and recorded whether or not there was a misclosure on the original lines that were in here, whether there was a misclosure distance on here. It went and stamped the date it was created and such on here. So it goes and performs additional tasks beyond just creating parcels or creating polygons and creating lines. It actually will go and run through and make sure that the attribute rules are run, make sure that everything is validated on here. So again, that's a data-driven workflow. And on the ArcGIS Pro 3, the new tab is now called Parcel Record Workflows, and it includes all the types of workflows that are Parcel Fabric enabled on here. And once you use any of these workflows, it will then go and invoke these and actually have it perform the individual tasks. A quality-driven workflow, we're going to talk about this. These are workflows or procedures that you do in which you're really not tracking created and deleted things. You're actually only modifying existing components on here. And that's really the biggest difference between record-driven workflows and quality-driven workflows. Think of it this way. With a record-driven workflow, you wish to organize around a single transaction, and you wish to record everything that was created and everything that was deleted as a result of that transaction. All right. However, quality-driven workflows, it's really modification of existing data. You're not creating or deleting things. You're just modifying what's existing. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, be careful, because it often will delete things, but you really don't want to keep track of them. And at the end of today's workshop, I'll show you some quality-driven workflows and what it does and doesn't do on there. All right, let me go back here. Let's turn off my history. And let's go in here and zoom in a little bit more, show you a couple more things about ArcGIS Pro 3 that we haven't really gotten the chance to talk about a whole lot. Let's clear this out and recognize that there's actually 3 different ways in which these dimensions are actually being displayed. And it turns out that that's because there's actually an option that says whether or not the information that's stored there, whether the user actually inputted or whether or not the system calculated it or whether or not it was actually modified by the system. And we'll go into that a little bit here. So I'm going to select a couple of lines here, and I'm going to unselect some other lines on here. So I have a couple tax lines here. I have this line here, which is this 349.5. I actually have 2 of those here. Let's unselect one. So I have this line here. This line, if I look down, there's an attribute field called COGO type. And there's actually 3 different settings for COGO type. One is that it was entered by me as part of a COGO enabled workflow using the Traverse tool or using one of the sort of constraints that are available when I'm inputting COGO. And when I do that, it would have been set to entered. If, however, I had input the line and it was just set to be inversed or calculated using the update COGO lines. Let's go over here and let's go to update COGO just to show you here. If I go to update COGO will allow me to go and look at these lines and determine whether or not it was from the geometry, which is inversing. It's calculating what the bearing and distance is from what's actually mapped. And if it is that, it actually will, if it was from geometry, it actually will go and the new label expressions will put this brackets around the actual distance on there, noting that this was a digitized or this is not a real value on here. So let's go back here and look at this and see. So here is the 189.19, which means that there is really, it is from geometry. It was calculated by using the update COGO tool. So this 100 foot here, however, was In this case, this was entered, and in this case, it was also set to null. If it was entered, it actually will go and display as normal. Oh, it's 100 feet, and there won't be anything actually displaying where it was derived from. So here's our three options. Here's the entered here. Here is the from geometry, meaning it was computed and inversed from the actual shape length and the actual location of the line. And this is our third option here, which says computed. Computed denotes that this line was originally an entered value that has been split or cut or somehow derived, and the software prorated those values on there. And that's actually now being displayed with this plus or minus. So just to, this is the first time I've actually looked at this intently, and I recognize that there is a logic error in what Esri is doing with the label expression, and that they're actually putting this value in here and not having anything in front of or behind it. If it's null or if it's entered, that should actually be modified to only be entered values should have that value on here. So to demonstrate, if I go and take this 187 here, and if I were to go and input that this is 185, and then tell it that this is entered, it will now be displaying just 185. But if this were from geometry, this would have the brackets on here. And if this is computed, it would have plus or minus on the front of it. So that's some of the things that the parcel fabric does, in addition to taking care of combines and splits and other things. And this is one of the reasons why you use a parcel fabric. I see, Chris, that Kelly asked a question. Will the parcel type field be populated after upgrading in ArcGIS Fabric to a Pro Fabric? The problem with taking an ArcMap parcel fabric and upgrading it to an ArcGIS Pro parcel fabric is that in the ArcMap parcel fabric, every line has COGO values on it. So there's no way of knowing which ones are actually entered by the user and which ones are computed automatically by the ArcMap parcel fabric. So when you migrate an ArcMap parcel fabric in to ArcGIS Pro parcel fabric, it comes in with null values there. So it doesn't give you the real, it doesn't automatically go and identify those as being entered, because it may be that they're not entered. It may be that they were just calculated by the software when you input a line. So that's a good question, Kelly. Yeah, it automatically it does that. By the way, I noted here that I had a misclosure on this one parcel polygon. I noted that this thing is 535. So when I did a split at one time in this demo, it did not automatically calculate those values. So let me just go and take those and update the COGO values on here and show you that it went and upgraded them to 100 each. And it actually said, okay, these are both now from geometry. So they are actually inversed on there, and they are displaying as being inversed. It's not necessarily what was entered or necessarily that was computed. Another interesting thing here, and I know we're getting away from data-driven, but just sort of idiosyncrasies of the parcel fabric. Notice they both say that they are 100 long, but when I go and select the layer with both of them selected, it says there are different values on here. Why is there different values? Because inside of COGO in ArcGIS Pro, and this was also true in the ArcMap parcel fabric. So in parcel fabrics and ArcGIS Pro, the number fields, the distance fields are actually double precision floating point attribute fields. They are not text fields. So it will take whatever that value is. And if you look at this right now, this is now rounded. Excuse me, this is 99.998064. that gets rounded to 100. And then this other one here is 99.997408, which is then rounded to 100. So that even though it might have a label of 100, it doesn't necessarily mean they're exactly the same length or that they're exactly 100 feet. This is always reflecting some sort of rounded value in there, which is, from a surveying standpoint, a mapping standpoint, that's more realistic of what is actually occurring out in the real world. Rarely do you get something being an exact number. It's always some sort of rounded values coming in there. All right, so let's look at this now and see, explore a little bit more what happened when I did that very simple merge on here and what actually occurred. Remember, I said again that the parcel fabric goes and encodes the features that are created and that are retired with the object ID of the record. So if I go to my heads up display here and I say, show me all of the features, points, lines, polygons, that actually are coded with the same global ID as the one of my currently active record. And let's go and turn historic on also, just to make sure on here. All right, let's go and do this. Let's turn on here. And let's go and say, show me everything in the currently active record on here. And it will go and display a couple things. It will display what it created, which in this case is the active parcel. And again, this is, show me again here. This should all be selectable. It's the first time I pull this up here just to verify it. Come on. These are all selectable. These are all editable. So interesting that they've modified this so that only is what's created, not what is actually been marked as historic. Another thing you'll note here. So this, when I say show all my features in the active record, it only shows me that one new polygon. Previous iterations would also show me historic, which I think it should be doing right now. It also isn't showing me any lines on here because it actually used the existing lines. And I didn't create new lines. I actually just reused an existing line in here. So those previous lines that I had, these other boundary lines, they are not coded with the global ID of this record. All right. So it's, while we're doing this, let's bring that one more time here. Let's go to record properties. And record properties will show me that with this record, I have created one new parcel and I have retired two parcels on here. So it actually is updating the record polygon for a couple of things: the counts, how many parcels were created, how many parcels were retired. It does not list lines, it only lists the polygons on here. But it also will be modifying one more thing, and that's if I turn all my records on, it actually is modifying the geometry to the overall geometry of what I created and deleted. So if I had multi-part polygons, it would update it to the overall multi-part. Here's the combined in here, on here. All right, so that's sort of how records work, record-driven workflows are. So let's go to a different place and do another record-driven workflow and see what it's actually doing here. Let's do a simple one here. Let's create a new record. Again, if you want something to be organized according to how the or you want the record to record what was created, what was split, what was divided. Let's just call this a split on here, and let's make this let's make it an aliquot split, and the date at which I did this split on here. Note these have not been populated yet. And let's go ahead and create this record for us. Note we have a new record here. By the way, this is not a real small sample data. This is actually a county here in Florida. It's got about 140,000 parcels in it, just to let you know. All right, so there's my split. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this parcel. All right, this parcel here. I'm going to make sure that my modify is not on update. I'm going to take this parcel here, and I'm going to split that parcel. And I'm going to do it sort of old-fashioned way, in which I'm going to go to parcel driven, and I'm going to copy the lines that are associated with this parcel. I'm going to copy the lines to tax. And what it's going to do is go through a process in which my existing polygon will be automatically marked historic. My lines will actually be copied and made available to me. And my attributes, it actually will create a temporary seed if I keep this as checked, in which it actually preserves the attributes. It will create the seed, by the way, one way, whether I have this checked or not checked. But let's just say go ahead and do that. And it will only show me what's in my current active record at this time. So everything else will disappear. And I now have recognition that all 4 of these lines and this one seed are now part of this active record. My other historic polygon that I used actually is now also encoded with this. So let's just go and take this seed and we'll move it. Let's go and move it up to here somewhere, because we're going to split it and we're going to divide that parcel into north-south parcels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the 2 vertical lines, the new north-south lines, and here I'm going to use the divide command. And again, the tools inside of ArcGIS Pro are aware, they're self-aware. They're self-aware of a couple different things. A, what type of a feature do you actually have you selected? In this case, it knows I've selected lines. So it uses the line division options instead of the polygon division options. And now it says, okay, well, how do you want to split them? And I can say, let's split them into 2 different equal parts. And I can say, let's do it 2 different parts. And it's going to show me also the preview of what those 2 parts are. And I'm going to say, go ahead and divide this. It will also go and divide it. And if you look, it actually automatically calculated what the COGO values are of those and mark them as being computed, not inverse, but being computed, because the original value was actually entered in there. So I'm going to get off of the divide command. And I now have 4 new lines that I had split and broken apart. Let's go in here and create some tax lines now. And let's just do a line here that goes from here to here. All right, and say that's good. And get off of that. That has no COGO right now, by the way. Has no COGO values on here, no COGO types on here. I can tell it to go ahead and update the COGO if I want. All right, again, it will mark it that this is now inversed or from geometry, computed, and entered. All right, let's get off of update inverse. So I now have my lines in here, and I've split this vertically into 2 parts, the north half and the south half of this parcel. I have a seed on here the first thing I want to do after I've created all these lines is I want to go in here and test to see whether I've got any gaps in the lines that I have created, whether they close. So I'm going to tell it to create seeds on here. It will go through and review and say, okay, there's a seed here. And here's that existing seed that you moved up here. I now have lines. And just to test it out, if I say select everything in my active record, I have my lines on here. I have my 7 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines on here. I have 2 parcels that are going to be built on here. I have 1 seed that I created and 1 seed that was brought over, in which I told it to copy the attribution on here. And now what I can do is I can tell, go ahead and build this. And what does the build do? The build goes and evaluates the lines, evaluates whether or not I have an existing seed in here, and it goes and expands that seed to match up to the lines that are part of my record. I can say, go ahead and build this out. It will build these lines and create 2 new parcels for me. Again, the parcel fabric's doing several things here besides just building those parcels for me and making sure that I have sufficient lines covering it on top of the polygons. It's calculating the COGO values on here. It's calculating the area included in here. It's doing a lot of different things. It marked my original one historic. Let's go in and let's clear this out again and test this again and see what it's actually going to provide me back. It should provide the lines. I'm not sure why it's not doing that now. So it did provide the lines that time because those lines were not reused. They were created again and marked, and it had my 2 polygons on here. Record-driven workflows. It keeps track of what you've done, keeps track of what you created and what you deleted. Not necessarily what you modified, but what you created or what you deleted. Right. So those are the sort of 2 main things. By the way, I could have gone and used a different divide. And I'm going to be lazy here. I'm going to use the same record here. And I'm going to select this parcel and just show you that when I do a divide now, it now knows I don't have lines. I have a polygon on here and allows me to go and automatically create a division of a polygon. In which case I'm going to tell it widths and I'm going to tell it 200 feet. And I'm going to choose the polygon line here, and it's going to go and split my polygon, splitting out for me the northern 200 feet of this parcel. When I say divide out, it will go and divide it up. It will create, again, the line between them, and it will create the points at the ends of the lines for me. So because it's enabled with the parcel fabric and I have an active record, it's going to keep track of all of these and make sure that they all go and work in accordance with one another. It does everything I need it to do on here. The only thing I need to do is now go in here and tell it what the new parcel numbers are on here. Again, record-driven workflows. I'm tracking a record or a transaction. That's what record-driven workflows are for. I've got one more thing I want to show you here, and this is an interesting thing in that, let's go and turn on conveyance division. This is a new tool that's in 3. And what this new tool will allow me to do is let's go and create a right-of-way taking. Let's go and say that this is here. And I'm going to go all the way to here. And I'm just going to draw it. I'm going to be lazy here. And I'm creating a polygon here. And by the way, I'm again using that same record on here. I don't care. I'm just going to tell it, go ahead and do this. I created a polygon and I told it now build it. So it's going to go and build any missing lines, any missing points on here. It's going to create them all for me. But I'm now going to have a conveyance division polygon here. Conveyance division polygon. All right. And this is a roadway that is being abandoned and is being transferred. So what I'm going to do is let's go and turn off my historic here. I really don't care about this. I want to show you what's going on. There is a new function here, a new tool for Parcel Fabric called transfer parcel. And this is a wizard-driven tool. And it first says, okay, now you've mapped out the parcel that you want to transfer between different parcel types. So I've created a road that's being abandoned or vacated. First thing it says is, okay, select what's being transferred. And I've done that. I'm going to say now, select where it's going to be clipped from. And I'm going to select this road and say it's going to get clipped from that road. And then the wizard next says, okay, well, select now what it's going to be merged into. And I'm going to merge it into these two parcels. The next thing is it says finish. All right. And now, oh, that should have actually gone through here. Let's try this one more time. Let's select this one, unselect this one. Here, this is the roadway. This is the two parcels. And I don't care about the historic parcel. Ah, interesting. Didn't work. You can tell that that was not a pre-scripted demo. I did just get it to work earlier, working fine. It actually goes and clips it out of the roadway and then goes and takes and goes to merge it, and it will actually go and extend this line out and clip it. Part of this will go here, part of this will go here, and it'll go and transfer them all. Not quite sure why that's not working yet, but I'll look into that and I'll demo that some other time. All right. Record-driven workflows. Again, this is so it keeps track of what's going on here. By the way, the transfer parcels is a record-driven workflow. All right. So let's talk about what is a record-driven workflow, what is not a record-driven workflow. So if we don't necessarily need to keep track of what's going on here, that's also called a quality-driven workflow. And let me see if I can find something in here that might be, something that we might use a quality-driven workflow on here. Right. This is, in fact, excessive points. And these often will come in when you have, when you're bringing things in from densified curves, from CAD files, from shape files, even from ArcMap, Parcel Fabric, you'll wind up with multiple points and multiple lines in here. One of the quality-driven workflows is called a merge points. And in this case, if I go and, by the way, I'm going to turn off my heads-up display here, so I have no active record here. And what this tool actually does is it goes and gives you a list of the 2 points that are in my selection and allows me to go and see what's going to happen when I tell it to merge the points together. And merging the points also means that I'm going and making and moving and modifying the lines that are connected to those points and the polygons that are connected to those points. And you can see it lets me choose between 1 and 2. In this case, if I go to 1, point number 2 will disappear and that line will disappear. This line will be extended. If I go to point number 2, This line will disappear. This line will be extended. That line will be modified over to there. This polygon will be extended and this polygon will be modified. So let's just go to 1 right now and say merge on here, and it will go and merge. And if I look, point number 2 is gone. However, it does not modify this distance at all. I'm hoping that future releases of this will allow us to go and have that as one of our options. Right now, we don't, but just be aware that it goes, and let me go through all these again, back to my original subdivision I was at. Something was pointed out to me recently in which I'm going to really modify something here. And I'm going to go into a merge points. And this is going to be really exaggerated, and it's going to be something you really shouldn't do, but I'm going to do it just to show you one of the issues. So if I go into a merge points here and I select this control point and another point over here, by default, it's going to identify that this control point, which by the way has a fixed shape of yes, and the adjustment constraint is supposed to be XYZ constrained, that always is going to come up as the top choice. And the other point would always be modified over to there. However, as was recently pointed out to me by one of our followers here from Mark, if I were to go and say, no, I want to go and merge point number 1 into point number 2. Now, again, this breaks the rules. Number 1 is a control point and it should not be merged. Well, you know what? I can actually go in here and I could merge it in and it would move point number 1. That's a bug. That's another bug in 3 that we found. The first bug being the label expressions. The second bug, and the one more serious, is the fact that it would go and move control points and it's not supposed to do that. So just be aware of that. All right, so these are quality driven. This is where, in fact, you go and you make modifications to the geometry, simple modifications such as maybe I have, let's go and do an aligned features, again, quality driven, in which maybe I want to realign everything and make it all fit together so that it matches a new alignment. So I'm going to go and make this 25. This align features tool will go and take everything that is turned on, being displayed, is editable and selectable, and it will modify the vertex of everything so it matches whatever path I just drew. And I can tell it, go ahead and realign this, and it will move all of these lines, all of the polygons, all of the points on there. All right. So it went and modified them all. Again, just to show you, undo and then redo. It went and moved them over. None of those got coded with a record. They all kept their existing records in there. Again, record-driven workflows, what's created and what's marked as retired or historic. That's what happens with record-driven workflows. It tracks those. So Chris, I also see that Mark also made a comment, for the records sometimes have 2 valid control points. For example, we may have 2 surveyors give us different location, XY locations for the same corner. Yes, that's actually more often than not that happens. It's different observations, different control points. To get into surveying speak, different opus, different sort of values that occur at that same time, because an XY GPS derived point is nothing more than a statistical analysis of what the most likely point is. It doesn't necessarily give you exactly what that point is, but what the most likely point is as a result of that collection or observations on there. So yeah, Mark, that's correct. And it's another reason why that moving of control points is problematic. It's something that should not be done. and something that I think is troublesome on here. So let's go and see if I can undo this here. And let's undo everything that I did here. And let's see if I can work that magic on that transfer one more time. All right, let me go and get off of here. Let's create a new polygon here. Again, here, here, here. Let's create the polygon. Oh, I forgot to actually go and assign that. So let's go and create a record. Transfer. That's all I really need to do in here. Let's create the transfer record. Set it get up here. All right, let's go and, oh, doesn't have anything on there. Let's go and take my selected. Take my selected feature and assign that to the record so that that selected feature now has the coding of the attributes of the global ID of this record polygon. That's what this is here. Let's tell it to go and build it so it builds the lines and the points for that parcel. Now, once we have everything in place there, then let's do the transfer again. Let's see if we can get it to work this time. All right, so let's go and do a transfer. There's the parcel that we want to go and transfer. Here is the road that we want to take it out of. Here are the 3 parcels, and we don't want that. Here are the 3 parcels. We don't want it there either. Here are the 3 parcels that we want to transfer it to. Let's see if we can get this to work now. You can actually see what's going on. All right, so what this did is if I look at my old roadway, all right, let's let it finish. Sorry. There we go. If I look at my roadway has been clipped out. It's been taken out of the road. And now this parcel, let's look at the attributes here. This is the new tax parcel configuration. That's that initial right of way that got brought over. And if I look here, this is now my new road that's been extended out to there. And this is my original conveyance. And here's the new tax parcel that's been extended and the original conveyance division on here. There's some question back and forth as far as whether this one should be retired or somehow modified. This tool itself, this transfer parcels, is meant for things like taking a parcel and adding it into a jurisdictional. So it's not automatically deleted or modified in any way. It's just taking it and being able to add it back and forth. So it did work here. I don't know why it didn't work before, but it did work here. And that is, again, a record-driven workflow. It's available only in 3.0. And it's one of those things that I think as we explore more and more cases where we might be able to use it, that is a really good case for going and roadway dedications, roadway takings, vacations, those sorts of things. So I could actually go and draw a road polygon here. It would transfer it over to this road right away, and it would clip it out of that tax parcel. So again, I think it's a good tool. Got to figure out why it didn't work the first time, but it's a good tool. All right, are there any questions on here or anything that, any comments that we want? Right away, record-driven workflows. They deal with the heads-up display. Again, heads-up display. No record, a record. No record, a record. It's all driven around here. Quality-driven workflows are meant to go and increase the quality of the geometry, not rebuild it necessarily, but increase the geometry of the quality of the geometry by realigning things, by merging points, by doing those sorts of cleanups that often is required when you bring data in from elsewhere. If there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And thank you. Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.